Hello, this is Robert Simmons. I'm talking to you from New Zealand, and I'm excited to talk to you today because a lot of things have been happening, and I'll start off by telling you some of those. I've just finished the book, The Alchemy of Stones, which it was a big project. It's about a 500-page book, and it's a guide to how much more we can do with stones than we've ever done before, and kind of um, a way of expanding and making more effective all the kinds of work and spiritual awakening that we can engender through our work with stones and minerals. Um, so it's been an exciting process for me. It took 5 years for me to research and undergo the experiences and write down everything that's in the book. So that book will be printed and out in May, and I'll be introducing it at the Alchemy of Stones workshop, the intensive workshop that I'm presenting in Vermont in June of 2020. That's June 11th through the 14th. If you're interested in that, go to heavenandearthjewelry.com and there'll be information there about the workshop and all the things that we're doing there. So I hope a lot of you will come. But I want to tell you also that in the last month since I've done a video, I have been at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show with Heaven and Earth, and we had a really good time there and made a lot of connections with people. It was a really successful show for us, and also I was able to talk to a lot of people. I even gave a couple of free workshops while I was out there to introduce people to the ideas of the alchemy of stones. So that was fun and exciting, and really showed me that people are connecting, and that the people who are working spiritually with stones are ready for this. And so that was especially affirming to me, since I'm just about to offer this big workshop. But on top of that, while we were in Tucson, we found a lot of new stones to buy, to bring into our inventory and in our offerings on the website, but also to work with in the new workshop. So all of that is kind of cooking in the alchemical pot. And today I want to talk to you about some of the major elements of the things that we'll be doing in the Alchemy of Stones Intensive in June, and also what we do generally when we work with stones for our evolution and our development. So, one of the big things, probably the biggest thing that people talk about and want from their work with stones, is healing. And in the processes that have to do with spiritual alchemy, which is the focus of the way I work with stones now, there are different kinds of healing, all of which lead toward the gaining or the regaining of wholeness, which Carl Jung called individuation, and which the alchemists called the creating of the philosopher's stone. But both of those things and our work with stones, without those terms even being involved, have to do with bringing ourselves together in the fullness and balance of our well-being and the fulfillment of our potential that is summarized by the word healing. So, there are many different kinds of healing, and just in big categories, I would say there's physical healing, there's emotional healing, and there's spiritual healing, which I like to call spiritual activation, because in order for spiritual awakening and activation to happen and be sustained throughout our day-to-day life, the physical and emotional healing needs to be done, because those are the things that, if they recur, they hold us back from having more than momentary experiences of spiritual awakening and momentary times in which we have our wholeness. So in alchemy, they called those things conjunctions, and there are three major conjunctions in alchemy. The first conjunction is where the surface self and the deep self find one another and they come together. And when I say the surface self, I'm talking about our everyday self that we call I. And the deep self is the subconscious self, the body self, the awareness, the heart self, all the awarenesses that are below what we're normally conscious of, but which serve and long for union with the everyday self. So now at the workshop, we're going to be practicing and doing both meditative practices and layouts, and we're going to be creating tools for physical healing, emotional healing, and spiritual activation. And we'll be using a lot of different stones. In fact, everybody who comes to the Alchemy of Stones Intensive in June in Vermont will, when they arrive, will issue everybody a stone bag, as we call it, that will have about almost 50 different kinds of stones in it. It will certainly have at least 50 stones, because in some cases we use a pair of them rather than just one. So about 50 stones will be there for every person to work with. And as you know already, the different stones tend to be specialized in their energies for different applications. So just in brief, I'll say we'll look at some stones that we're going to be working with at the event and that I recommend highly, which is why we'll be using them at the event. And we'll go through each of these levels of healing. So for physical healing, there are several stones that I brought today to the work table to show you and to talk about, and all of these will be a part of what we work with at the Alchemy of Stones Intensive, and they're stones that are talked about in the new book. So the first and foremost of the healing stones that I like to work with and that I call a broad spectrum healing stone is this one, and this green stone is the stone that we call healerite. Healerite was found in the U.S. in the Northwest, in the mountains up there, and it's a variety of serpentine, so it's actually a pretty soft stone. It feels very nice to touch, and it has a natural affinity for the heart. You may notice I'm wearing a necklace today, and that is a healing-oriented necklace for healing and physical vitality. And the green on here, this yellow-green color, that's healerite in the necklace too. So healerite has a natural affinity to be worked with at the level of the heart. And that's, of course, where I tend to work initially with all stones in terms of establishing a connection with them. If you've watched any of the other videos, you know that I recommend beginning relationship with the stone through bringing it to the heart. As we inhale, we invite the stone into our heart and visualize its image in our heart chakra. And on the exhale, we offer ourselves for relationship with the stone being. So it's a kind of a loop. It's a feedback loop of inviting it in and offering ourselves out to it. And as we do that, we use our imagination to visualize it within us in the heart. And once we have that going, we usually are also able to feel the energy of the stone, whatever stone it is. And in this case, for physical healing, healerite is kind of the first go-to for all conditions, because energetically it carries what I would call the perfected pattern of the divine blueprint of the human being. So in other words, its vibrational chord or spectrum or set of notes that it emanates, that we can feel is harmonious and evokes the well-being of the whole physical body. And all of this works, all of our physical healing efforts work through what's called the subtle body. So the subtle body is the in-between. It's between our spirit and our physical form. You could also call it the soul body. And the energies of stones, I believe, work in this middle realm that is an amalgam or an overlap of the physical world and the spiritual world. The Sufis called it the imaginal realm, but they didn't mean it was imaginary. They meant it was the realm in which energies and beings manifest themselves in images. So when we attune to it in meditation, for example, if you see things in meditation, you're in the imaginal realm with your consciousness. You're in the realm of image. And even if you don't see things, if you feel things like heat, or if you hear things, or if you just have a sense of knowing while you're meditating, this is all occurring in that realm of the so-called imaginal, in which the physical world and the spiritual world overlap. So it's a bit like this. It's like two circles overlapping, and that place in the center where they overlap, that's that world of the imaginal. And kind of paradoxically, even though it seems like the small part of this figure that I make when I overlap two circles, the imaginal realm actually encompasses both the physical and the spiritual world. And we'll talk about that in another video. But for physical healing in the Alchemy of Stones workshop, we'll start with healerite. And that is to bring in that full pattern of healing and the well-being of the organism, the human organism. Secondarily, there'll be two stones we work with to bring in life force. And life force is basically chi, it's vitality, it's the sense of having energy as distinct from being fatigued and drained. So when we're stressed out, when we feel fatigued, when we've worked too many hours, or when an illness has got us down, one of the good things we can do with stones is invite the energies of stones that carry a lot of chi. And you could just as easily call that life force. So one of these is this red stone. I don't know how red it looks. It kind of looks a little black to me in this. It's sort of a brick red color in this particular example. But this stone is red fire azestulite. And red fire azestulite is the deep red member of the azestulite family. And although azestulite activates and stimulates the energies in every cell of the body, the red fire azestulite especially brings energy in through the root chakra. And so when you want to bring in vitality, the opening to the Earth's energy field and to the life force that's available to us from the Earth is at the root chakra. So being grounded is important. And where many azestulites are very high vibration, the red fire azestulite is actually stimulating at that root chakra level. I wouldn't call it grounding, but I would call it grounded. So you can get a lot of vitality energy if you place a red fire azestulite stone around the root chakra. And you can create a kind of a circuit if you take these two and you put the healerite at the heart and the red fire azestulite down near the root chakra. You can't see that in this video, but that's where I've put it just now. And I can already feel the kind of looping, circulating energy, and it's a very good feeling that begins as soon as I have both of those stones in place. Now, if we want to enhance our physical vitality more, we can open up ourselves to this other stone called vitalite. And vitalite is also kind of a reddish purple, but it has sparkles in it of mica, and it also carries white quartz in it. and some black biotite. So there's quite a bit going on physically in Vitalite, and it also is a stone of a lot of chi and vitality. Now, whereas the red fire zestulite I showed you brings in chi at the root chakra, the Vitalite is really a nice stone at this level between the heart and the root. You could say it's good at the third chakra. It's also good around the second chakra or anywhere in between. And I like to put it between the second and third chakras, between the solar plexus and the sexual creative chakra, because it seems to be energetically kind of bridge between those. And when you use the red fire zestulite that I have down at the root right now, this one helps to strengthen the energy corridor between the root and the heart. And so, you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm bringing that one down there to that transition place. I have the healerite here at the heart, and now that's really a strong energy now. It's coursing up and down through the spinal cord area and the whole front of my body, right up to the heart level, and a little bit up towards the throat. Now, I've got a fourth stone that we will bring into this, and that should bring this quality of overall healing energy for the physical body into the fullness of the whole body. So I'm going to place the Vitalite down sort of under my belt loop. That puts it in that right area for the second to third chakra transition. I've got the healerite at my heart, the red fire zestulite down at the root, and now this one. This is a stone that I did not know for a long time was a good stone for physical healing through the subtle body. And this is another type of zestulite. It's called saurolite zestulite. And saurolite zestulite is found in New Zealand, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, that's also where Vitalite is found. So it was a very wonderful thing for me to discover New Zealand, because I also started discovering all these stones that are here that are not found anywhere else. So you can see this is in a kind of a form of a big point, and if I hold it close, you can see it has a lot of small points along the body of it. I like this one because the point at the end is a great focal point for putting the energy right where I want it to go. So in this case, I'll just put it there, and I'm going to tell you how that feels with these other three stones that I've got going. And it's good that I'm doing this today because, frankly, I was still a little bit fatigued after my trip to the U.S. to do the Tucson Mineral Show. It was a month long and lots of hours of work and many people to meet. And anyway, stayed healthy thanks to this necklace, I'd say, because I wore it almost every day. But I'm still in the recovery mode, and you can see I have pretty good energy now, but this is what I feel like I want right now. So I'm just going to bring this in, and I'll close my eyes for a moment, and then I'll report. So this one, I don't even want to take this stone away from my forehead. This is pulsing really strongly. And the saurolite zestulite is a high frequency energy. It's a very, that just brought the energy from below all the way up to my third eye and the top of my head, and created what I'd call a corridor of healing currents that were moving and are still moving through the whole of my body. You know, once you get this going, especially if you're still holding the stones, even if you haven't got them in those places, your body kind of having resonated with those energies, it continues to do so, even if they're not kept in those same spots. And that's something you can learn about it. You can learn that about many other stone combinations. Once you get it going, if you stay in contact with the stones, it keeps going. And it can keep going afterwards. But in any case, the sarlite azestulite drew the energy that I was feeling up to about here, and it brought it all the way up to here, and then up here to the crown chakra. I've just got to do that again because I like it. Ah, that's so nice. Sarlite has a quality that is really unique in that it's one of the sweetest and most gentle, loving energies of any stone in the mineral kingdom. You know, all the azestulites have a lot of light, but sarlite azestulite in particular has this feeling like an angel is with you, and it is it just fills you up with this sense of sweetness. And I've a few months ago, when I was having some physical issues, I had the impulse to try just sarlite alone to work on the issues I was having, and it made the issues resolve themselves in about a period of 10 minutes. And that was great because I had been trying, you know, herbs and homeopathic remedies and other things like that, and wasn't really getting too far with them. But the sarlite azestulite just sort of relaxed the inner contraction in the body that I realized later was coming from a contraction of energy in my subtle body. And that's the way it works. You know, what the patterns are in the subtle body are often manifested in the physical body. So when we treat the subtle body through bringing these energies in, then the change happens there, and frequently the physical body will reflect that. So, you know, I've talked longer about this physical healing work than I realized I would, so I'm not going to get into the emotional healing or spiritual activation today, not in this video, but I will do those in the next couple of videos, and I'll bring in and talk about the stones that we'll use for those. But in the workshop, in the Alchemy of Stones Intensive, we will go through the same succession of processes. You know, we'll begin by activating our whole subtle body energy field, and we'll do that with a number of different stones at the beginning of the event, so that through the whole 4 days, our subtle body is fully turned on, you might say, and our sensitivities are activated. And one of the great things about coming together in a group setting like this intensive will offer is that there is a field of energy that the people who come create just by being there with the intentions that we all bring. So I look forward to that very much too, because that's another part of why it works so well and why things happen at these workshop events that are of a higher order and more profound very often than what we can easily do, you know, working alone. I bring a huge number of stones there too, so that's just everything is magnified. But I do want to say to you again, you know, the stones that we talked about today, we talked about healerite for the heart. We talked about red fire azestulite. I kept that at the root to bring in the chi. We talked about vitalite, which is that vitality and life force, which and its placement acted as a bridge so that the chi from the root chakra could start moving up and resonating even more powerfully with the healerite at the heart. And then we went to the sarlite at the top to bring everything up to fill in the whole energy body with healing energy and spiritual light. along with those loving angelic qualities. So I hope that was helpful to you and that you learned a little bit about 4 of the stones that we'll be working with at the Alchemy of Stones Intensive this coming June. And I'm very excited to see you there. I hope that everybody who has an interest in this will check in with your own heart to see if you feel a calling to come. And if you do, I hope you listen to it. I'm like kind of a kid on the day before Christmas. That's how it feels to be getting ready and preparing all the teaching and the stone practices and gathering the stones for this event. If you can imagine, if we have about 50 stones for each person, that means we are pulling together something like 10,000 stones for the workshop bags. And that's a lot of energy. So I hope you'll come and dive into that energy with me. But in any case, I hope that you let anything I've said that resonated with you, give it some attention. And if any of these stones speak to you, work with them or seek them out if you don't have them. And listen to what your own deep self and what the stone beings tell you, because that is the path of spiritual alchemy that I call the alchemy of stones. And it's been and continues to be very, very rewarding for me. It keeps me feeling young and happy and excited about life, and it surprises me with inspirations and awakenings when I least expect it. So I wish that for you as well. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll be sending out another video really soon. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.